welcome back to episode 2 of Classic Anime Fan. And I'd like to talk about the early days of anime fandom in the 70s and 80s. The 70s are real easy, because I was watching Battle of the Planets in 78 and I was in first grade. So in first grade you would find like-minded science fiction fans and you would discuss Battle of the Planets, and a year later in 79, Star Blazers, and it was mostly in elementary school we would talk about what we liked about Star Blazers and the art design, the ship designs, the battles. In the 80s, there was no Netflix, Crunchyroll, there was no streaming, the internet was barely there. I think you had bulletin boards back in those days, but everyone didn't have a computer in those days. It wasn't until about 81, I think, or 82, sometime in the early 80s when IBM came out with their main computer and that caught on. But that would be something for your office. You wouldn't have necessarily a home office unless you're wealthy. And so in the 80s, I was, in 85 I was watching Robotech, and that would put me in middle school. And I met a friend named Pat. He was born in Japan and he grew up in Japan. And in Japan they had these cool, it was a TV with a VCR underneath it, and you could put the blank VHS tape into it and record directly from TV. So my first exposure to real Japanese anime, as opposed to localized stuff like Robotech and everything that came out. Captain Harlock wasn't big on TV. Well, in Tampa, it might have been big in like San Francisco, places in California, or in Hawaii, where they would have a larger Japanese population. But so in Tampa, well, my friend Pat would come over, ride his bike with a book bag, like in Stranger Things, and then we would watch maybe one episode of anime. There was no binge watching. You were lucky to get one episode. What I remember is I took a chance on Rama 1/2, and I remember watching that one, and the commercials were still in it. And I remember the old McDonald's ads, and I remember the female Japanese Ronald McDonald, and she was frightening. It made me not want to go to McDonald's. It made me want to boycott Happy Meals. Something about her weird smile. She was a little too cheerful. I thought she was demented, but it was funny to watch that back in the day. But anyway, here's how we access anime back in 1985. So we had something like this. This was made by Sony, a VCR, and on the back you have your cables to hook it up to the TV. Now the fun part was you would have to take over your parents' TV, or your buddy would have to come over with a small TV, and you would use the connectors in the back, and the legend had it you wanted the gold tip dubbing cables to dub them off. So there was a Japanese market that used to be in Tampa, and near the Publix, right next to Wright's Gourmet. Wright's Gourmet actually took over where that market was when they made these, when they did their recent expansion. But that, for years, that was, it was just called Oriental Market, and you would go in there and there'd be Japanese recipe books, there'd Ultraman candy, Kamen Rider stuff, my first exposure to real ramen. They would have real ramen imported from Japan. But most importantly for me and my friend Pat was they had a VHS library and they would rent out to you. So we paid a small fee, and then for like $3 we could rent tapes. So once we were able to do that, we were set. So we dubbed off quite a bit of stuff. Here's an old tape, old VHS tape here of some of the stuff we dubbed off, and these are not complete series. These are random episodes in raw Japanese with the commercials intact, and I would love to burn these to a DVD one day. So like on this one we had Catgirl. That was the best I could come up with for the English title, because I'd have to listen to what the store clerk was telling me, because all the tapes were in Japanese with the kanji and characters, and I was no Japanese scholar in '85 when I was a preteen. So Catgirl's on this one. JoJo, The Strange Adventures of JoJo, today what they call JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, City Hunter, Gum Rusty Angel. These were all old stuff. I have several VHS tapes. Here's one for Violence Jack. This was more into high school, early college, around late 80s, 90s. Some of these are probably, they're from a period from 85 to the early 90s. So that's the period we're talking about. Here's a Gojira versus Mecha Gojira, and I even wrote down the date that it was, that I rented it. Or the date, no, not that I rented it. They had the release date on the VHS tape, so it was 8/4/94. So an old VHS copy of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, a remake from '94. And on this one, Gloga 13, with this is the one where they early use of CGI in an anime. So it's a really old tape. There's not even a label there. And then this one was from Sci-Fi TV and MTV. Shonen Knife. Shonen Knife had just come out with Rock Animals. And Kurt Cobain had a Shonen Knife turn with Nirvana back in the days of grunge. So this is a Shonen Knife live performance from MTV. This is Robotech, recorded from TV, and Tank Police recording from, at the time it wasn't Sci-Fi or what they're calling it now, it was the Sci-Fi Channel, and you saw a little like icon of Venus, and it would say like Sci-Fi Channel. So Tank Police, an episode of Tank Police. And I've got all kinds of stuff. Giant Robo Volume 1. And back in those days, I took it all so serious, so I had no ability of Japanese writing, so I painstakingly just copied it the best I could, because I was always into art and drawing, so I tried to copy the look of the Japanese characters as best I could. It's probably not readable now. I mean, years later, I went to a Japanese college, Hirakata near Osaka, and perfected my Japanese writing skills, but this was before all that stuff. Here's one of the first ones that I got. I believe this was a Taiwanese bootleg, because I thought it was Japanese writing, but I believe it's Chinese. And this is Demon City Shinjuku. And I don't even know if the label, yeah, the label, it was just written on it, Demon City. There used to be a store in the Panhandle in Panama City, Florida, called Anime Pavilion or Anime Paradise, and you could, I think for 10 or 20 bucks, you could get a dubbed copy, you know, with a Taiwanese bootleg copy. And they used to have catalogs. In those days, it was a paper catalog, and you'd be lucky to get one of those, or a friend would pass it on to you, and you'd have to take care of it. The other big thing in my life at that time in the 80s, there was a huge Asian market downtown called Oceanic Oriental Market in downtown Tampa. And my next big interest was Jackie Chan. So my favorite Jackie Chan movie is Meals on Wheels. It was released in Japan as Spartan X. And Jackie Chan, he's with his brother or cousin, or he teamed up with a friend of his. And together they sell food from like what you would call a food truck today, but this was what, 83 or 86, sometime in the 80s. I'm not seeing the date here on the back of this. Golden Harvest, 1984, this game. So there was a van, and the van would open up, and they would take orders selling egg rolls, hot dogs, a weird mixture of Western and Chinese foods and cokes, and Jackie Chan would get on a skateboard and do these awesome skateboard tricks and take orders and sell food. So I'm looking for a good Blu-ray copy of this. This one is Wheels on Meals. More about Jackie Chan in a later episode. When I was in Japan, I found near what they call the Geek District, the electric town for Osaka. It was Denden Town or Nihonbashi. Nihonbashi. And on the outskirts of Nihonbashi, I found a Hong Kong store. And I got some Bruce Lee stuff and some Jackie Chan stuff. And I got a Japanese souvenir movie book for Wheels on Meals with great pictures in it. So I picked up that, and I picked up quite a few Jackie Chan things. But so at this store, you would have to pay $50 to be able to rent a tape, and then I would rent them and want to keep them. So for a used tape that was rented out previous, and it still, has these rental stickers on it, the little Chinese sticker there, it was $30. So I'd have to beg my parents for like birthday money, Christmas money, so I could go back to Oceanic. This one, look, the cover's all messed up. It's got a yellow sticker from the old VHS days, and this is Project A2. This was another oldie one. This one's been falling apart, and it was falling apart when I bought it, and all the Chinese writing there, and there it is, and it's from a market in Orlando. So I used to take trips in Orlando to check out Asian markets if they were renting tapes, and then I'd tell the guy, I live in Tampa, so I can't return this tape to you in 2 days or a week or whatever the rental time period is, so I want to buy it. So I ended up paying maybe 15 to $20 back in the early 90s for a copy of Project A2, which you can just probably stream on Netflix nowadays, or I'm sure places, oh, sorry, the camera quit on me. Bad camera. So, okay. So how did we find out about stuff? Well, you would ask the store clerk to give you suggestions. And the store clerk asked me what I liked, so I was like, I'm into sci-fi, horror. John Carpenter's The Thing was big in the 80s. So he recommended JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, so I would rent, a tape and get an episode here, two or there. But the first time I saw anime was in a magazine. It was 1984. I was reading an old issue of Starlog from 1984, and there was an ad there, I believe it was for Robotech. You saw this giant ship, and you saw the Robotech mechs. And I got fascinated by the mechs. And so watching Robotech, it was expensive in those days because the ad was like, it's $30 or $40 plus shipping to order one VHS tape, where you might get 2 episodes and that's it. There was no special features, nothing. You were lucky to get a bad English dub of Robotech. And so we couldn't make sense of some of the stuff in Robotech. So back in the old days, you had books like Robotech by Jack McKinney, and you'd have to read these books to figure out the politics of Robotech and the Zentradi and what was going on, and that's how we did it. In the old days, we'd watch anime, and it would be in Japanese, no subtitles, no options. And then you just have to sit around eating pizza or snacks and discuss, well, what do you think it was about? What do you think they were saying? Because, well, there was no way to understand what was going on. It was years later, this is, yeah, a lot of years later, from 85, that magazines came out like Animerica, this one from 1994, so there were no resources, there was no anime club at my high school, there was nothing. My first year in college, 1990, there were, again, no anime clubs. I met a friend in college in Japan, and he started his anime club in 96, so, between 90 and 96, there was not too many anime fans. They were mostly science fiction fans, and you'd have to hang out with those dorks to get anything about anime. I remember I was at a con in Tampa from 1991 called Necronomicon, and there was only one anime dealer, and he was way in the back, and he just had a dirty cardboard box. I paid $5 for a bad English dub of Akira. I believe it's what they're calling the Funimation dub. So that's how I got Akira, and then we would go to my house, maybe, play some role-playing games, the old roll the dice paper ones, nothing fancy. And then after getting bored of that, we just watched Akira. So, hope you enjoyed episode 2, and the journey continues.